Welcome back, friends. Let's continue working on the project. In this video, we're going to make some fixes, and we will add one more grid view to show some summary results. Well, first of all, let's take a look at a necessary fix. Take a look. If I click on New here in the Details view, and I add a new person, so for example here, Bob Jones, and I hit Insert, we get a nice set of records generated right here. So Bob Jones, we get the ID, we get a nice set of records. But there's a problem. Take a look. If I now delete Bob Jones, as you can see, his records stay behind, at least until I do this. You see, if I navigate away from his record, then the grid view is updated after that. The question is it possible to make the grid view update as soon as you've deleted? Not you delete, then you navigate away from it, and finally it disappears. And the answer is yes. Let's take a look. All right, so here I am back in Visual Studio, and I'm going to go over to design mode. And here's the key to doing that. Take a look. First of all, because we are going to have one more grid view, I'm going to take the grid view in the middle, which by default, hopefully on your computer also is called grid view 1, and I'm going to rename it. So I'm renaming grid view 1 to just GV and then sales, like that. So this grid view here show the sales. That's it. All right. So next, take a look. Go back to design and make sure that updated name is shown in the display mode here, where it says ASP::grid view hashmark GV sales. Okay. And now do this. Select the details view above, right click on it, and go to the properties on the details view. So make sure over here on the properties, you go over to the details view. So DV employees, in other words. And we need to ensure that the grid view below it is properly updated when we delete a record from the details view, so that the two controls are properly synchronized as we interact with them. So to accomplish that, take a look here. Make sure that you are under this little thunderbolt. These are actions you can perform or events you can add. So the one that is of interest to us will be this one here. You see where it says item deleted? Look very carefully on the bottom of this panel. It says fires after a delete command is executed on a data source. All right, so double click on it. And this hopefully on your end also will bring up a code stub. And to this code stub, we can type code. So remember, what is it that we want to happen? We interact with the details view. Maybe we add a record, we then delete the record, and we would like the grid view below it to be smart enough to update itself appropriately. So to accomplish that, take a look. Within a stub that defines the body of DV employees _ item deleted, remember this runs after the deletion of the item. Just type this, type GV sales, and then as follows here, dot, and then data bind. So this will help to ensure that the grid view that stores the sales records is updated after the details view has a record removed. So the two will be synchronized, okay? So remember, runs after item is removed from details view. So you're binding the grid view sales box again. All right, build this for a second. All right, give it a launch, hit Google Chrome. Let's take a look at the effect. Let me open this up. Go to 3. And I'm going to add a new record up above. Just make up a name. All right, Amy Smith, hit insert. Switch to 4. And now we have her here. As you can see, Amy Smith. You can see her in the details view, and you can see her in the grid view below. And now look very carefully. When I delete from the details view, you see that block of records corresponding to her is removed also. So she's removed from the details view, and she's removed from the grid view. The grid view updates itself automatically, as it should. Now, with that in place, take a look here. is another slight issue that you may want to perhaps explore on your own. Again, take a look. If I hit new in Mario and say Rubio or something here, insert. So that looks as shown here. I've got Mario Rubio, his ID 1024. Okay, good. Now, obviously I can delete records from the grid view down below, no problem. I'm going to remove him from the details view. Now take a look. Before I do that, click on the 3 before it, and notice that that looks as shown here, you see? So there's some records are under Mario Jones. So I'm going to delete here under Mario Rubio, and notice this now defaults to Mario Jones, but as you can see, his records then don't become immediately visible until you do one of these. You see, you got to navigate back there by clicking on the page of controls. Well, that is something for you to consider perhaps fixing, okay? I'm not going to show you the solution, subtle detail, but it's present. All right, I'm going to close this for a second. What I want to do is take a look here, go over to main.spx, and I'm going to add a new grid view. And the purpose of this grid view will be to store summary information. So put a grid view right here between the details view and the existing grid view. It is true, obviously, that I could just make that a completely separate interface item that is independently movable and so on. If you want to do it that way, that's fine. I'm not going to show you the solution, but it's something for you to consider doing. All right. Of course, the code that you need to make that happen, you have available here. You just have to adjust it to that one specific control, really, and that's it. You see? All right, so drag a new grid view into the middle here and switch over to source view on it. And we're going to rename that. By default, it's given the name grid view 1. Remember, that is so because the previous grid view was renamed. So Visual Studio now will again start naming as grid view 1. It goes back to that. We're going to change this so it says GV and then summary. So you understand the purpose of this grid view. It is going to provide summary information on the sales records for each, say, employee. All right, let me go back to design view. Make sure you've got that. And let's add a new data source. So click on the tasks, go down to choose data source, and then go down to new data source. We're going to add a new data source, so go to SQL database. For the data source name, you can leave that if you want, or if you change it, for example, let's see, we can say that this is the SQL and then summary sales table, and then click OK. All right, for the connection string, you can reuse the same one we have used now a couple other times when we did employees in the sales table, and then click Next. And this time, for the sake of variety, I'm going to show you something different. So switch over to specify a custom SQL statements or stored procedure, and then click Next, and do this. Let's type it up by hand. I'm going to say it's the file. I'm going to say select some amount, and remember, because this data source is called SQL summary sales table, what I'm going to do is basically use a group by and a sum function to get a sum of the sales to be shown together with the individual sales records. I'm going to say select sum amount, and then I will say emp ID, like that, from sales table, where emp ID, remember on the left we have the field in the table, equals at, and then emp ID. Now, make sure that because you were using sum, you include the group by, so group by emp ID. This is just a common query, nothing fancy. The only thing might be a little strange here is notice we have this emp ID equals at emp ID. What does that mean? So I've typed this in by hand, and I'll look very carefully at what happens. Click Next. So because over here I have at emp ID, Visual Studio is smart enough to realize a parameter is involved. When I click Next, it gives me a new set of options we haven't seen before. And here's where you can set the parameter. So specifically for the parameter source, click Control, and the ID at this stage here, okay? That can come, for example, as you can see from DV employees. You want to make sure that the employee ID is synchronized among the three controls that we have: the grid view for all the individual records, the grid view for the summary records, and on top of it, the details view also. I want all three of those to be synchronized. So notice, take a look, it says here emp ID DV employees dot selected value. So whatever you have selected in the details view also is used here now. So everything is synchronized. So click next and click finish. Now, at the next stage, take a look here. I'm going to build this. Make sure everything takes. And the question is, will this operate as we think? So hit Google Chrome. I don't want to just keep going through everything. I have to explain to you why. Okay, expand that node. Well, and the useful thing is that we now have this new grid right here, right under the details view. Right now, as you can see, it's not very useful. It needs to be make it a little more prettier. All right, I'm going to go over to 3 and take a look. So you've got this column 1, and it's got a number in it. So first of all, we need a better header. And do we need anything else? Well, let's take a look. From the grid view below, where the individual records are shown, I'm going to delete one record and look very carefully at this new grid view in the middle between the individual records and the details view where it says column 1. Look very carefully. The problem is, you see, it's not getting updated as I delete records. So it's not a real-time thing. If I navigate away from it and come back, then you will see the updated value perhaps. So clearly that's not ideal. I'm going to shut this down and let's fix that bit before we do anything else. And the way to fix that is as follows. So you want to make sure that when you interact with the grid view that represents the individual sales records, so GV sales, right click on it and go to its properties. When you interact with it, you want to make sure that when something occurs here, that change is then used and immediately used to update the grid view that represents the summary information. So make sure you have the Thunderbolt showing under GV sales and then go through it, and you see where it says row deleted. Look down below, it says fires after a delete command is executed on the data source. So that's the right one for our purposes. So double click on it and this next to it here. Okay, and this brings up a new code stub. And again, we're going to say this time GV, and I'm going to say here summary, and then dot data bind. So basically refreshes summary grid view after a record is deleted from GV sales, like that. So build that. Okay, hit Google Chrome, launch it. Let's observe the effect. So show details. Okay, go say to 3. And now look very carefully. I'm going to delete one record from the bottom and look very carefully under column 1. You see it automatically changes. I'm going to do it one more time. Okay, now take a look. I'm going to hit edit. I'm going to stick in some ridiculous value in here and then hit update. And unfortunately, that doesn't affect, as you can see, column 1 again. What is that telling us? Close this. And as you might imagine, you may want to pause the video and try it on your own to fix it. But I'm just going to keep going. So again, right click on the grid view properties and go over here and look for the one that says row updated. Double click. So again, it's the same thing, the same process as before. The only difference is now you get GV sales underscore row updated. That's all. And now you will say GV summary and then dot data bind. So refreshes summary grid view after a record is updated. So let's take a look at this. Build it. Now remember one more thing before I run it. Go back into main.aspx and go into source view. Remember, every time you add a code stub to C# over here, when you look at these, Look at them very carefully. You see here, for ID GV sales, for that grid view, there's a line added that says on row deleted equals GV sales underscore row deleted. Remember, you've got to have those two right here. These are the ones that establish the connection to the C# page. Without them, it will be disconnected. It won't work. All right. So with that in place, let's give this a go. Hit Google Chrome. All right, let's expand this baby again. Okay, go over to 3, for example, and look at this big number. Okay, we need to see whether we can affect that. So hit Edit on the last record and make it a more reasonable value, like 8,000, for example. And then hit Update and keep an eye on column 1. And notice it gets updated automatically to a more reasonable value. So that confirms that now things are synchronized properly. And as the last bit, as you can imagine, the column 1 thing would have to obviously be formatted so it looks pretty. So I'm going to close this. You may want to pause the video and try it on your own, obviously. It's nothing new at this stage, but I'll do it anyway. So again, select that new GV summary. Go to its tasks, all right, edit the columns. Under column 1, select that, and for the header text, put summary, or in our particular cases, do this, total sales, because that's what that really is. Okay? And then lastly, click on convert this field into a template field, and then click OK. Notice that now it's been renamed to total sales, and then again, go to the tasks, go over to edit templates, and then under item template now, for total sales, click the label, click the little arrow, and go over to edit data bindings. And as you can see, it says that it's bound to column 1. That's fine. And the format will be currency, naturally enough. If you click on custom binding, of course, you could specify that here also if you wanted to. You see? We've gone over how to type that in, nothing new there. But you can just go with the default, click OK. Remember, click now that little arrow back under Grid View Tasks and Template Editing. And now let's run this. We want to confirm, so click Google Chrome one more time. All right, show details. There you go. 3. And now, as you can see, it's being formatted nicely. And it's working as expected very well. So I'm going to close this. Okay. Thank you for watching. Again, I've zipped up the project with all these modifications. It's under lesson resources, and I'll see you in the next one.